Hello, welcome to King of Our Nightmares. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Noah.
It's been a long time since we did one of these.
Yeah.
Let's talk a weird comic that I forgot was even written. Creepshow.
Do we have
Creep.
the same copy?
Yeah, this was out of print for a very long time, and it's only in recent years since the TV show for Shudder came on that they reprinted it.
Mhm.
But yeah, Stephen King wrote a comic back in the 80s, and it is literally the comic that is in the movie Creepshow.
Well, with some differences, which we can
There
get
are
to.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out who did the art for this.
Oh, Bernie Wrightson.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
You can tell
Famous.
because it looks really awesome.
Oh yeah. Um with the exception of the bookends with the kid, is that Joe Hill, or
Yep,
is that it's
that
Joe
is
Hill?
Joe Hill.
I couldn't remember if it was Joe Hill or Owen King.
Hmm.
um, and Tom Atkins slapping Stephen King's son. It's pretty. A lot of it's all the stories are from the original film directed by George Romero, and we will be talking about it. Unlike with previous episodes, when there's a film, we don't go into too much detail. With this, we're going to have to because Stephen King wrote the screenplay.
And he acted in it, and his kid as well. So
Yeah, well, I mean, Stephen King acts in a lot of his. This was the first one, I think.
I think this is like his biggest role, right?
Yeah,
Because usually it's like small cameos and stuff.
yeah. I mean, the only other big. Well, he has a bigger cameo in Langoliers, where he's part of that weird board meeting that
Yeah.
guy is hallucinating. But yeah, he shows up in a lot of his stuff, especially if he wrote the screenplay for it. He tends to show up. He has the cameo Maximum Overdrive, which we'll actually probably talk about this season. We might just do an episode on it. His one directorial attempt, which is coming up soon,
Hmm.
because that's late 80s or
Nice.
right around it.
I think we can already say it doesn't come close to Creepshow.
No, God, no. It's funny. I wanted to point something out before we really get into the writing of this. Some of the art that Bernie Wrightson does, it's clear they cast some of the actors when they
Yes.
went into development for this, and others they didn't. And one of them is Stephen King's character, which is in the second story. Um, doesn't look like Stephen King.
Hmm. But they clearly had casted Leslie Nielsen already because, I mean,
Leslie Nielsen, Adrienne Barbeau in the
mhm.
crate. Well, all the characters in the crate look like the actors. Um, the
Yeah.
first story, none of them look like it. Which, um, do we want to go story to story on this?
Yeah, I think that's fair since it's an anthology.
We shouldn't go into too much detail because they're really short.
Hmm.
The one of the big differences, because we don't have the bookends with in the movie. We'll go back and forth with the film and the book.
Hmm.
The film opens with kids reading a comic. Basically, dad catches him with the comic and takes it away and slaps him. Joe Hill gets slapped, and Stephen King apparently is like, "No, don't rough up my son too much." Tom Atkins, because he actually slaps him.
Hmm.
But in this, it's more like Tales from the Crypt or something like that, where we have the Creepshow ghoul or whatever. He has a name. I never remember it. He talks throughout the comic.
Hmm.
where you don't get that in the first Creepshow movie, for the better, because Creepshow 2 does it, and it's terrible.
You kind of get it because in the movie it's stylized, where they show like in between the segments there's like animations, and they show the comic and the pages of it,
Mm-hmm.
and there is the Creepshow character here,
Yeah, but he doesn't
the ghoul.
speak.
Well, in the comic he has like his lines like in here, but yeah, in the movie itself he doesn't speak, but
There,
they show the
there,
comic.
it's not Creepshow 2. He has an actor and he
Oh
speaks,
yeah, I know.
and
Isn't
it's
it like the
awful.
makeup guy?
Is it? I think it is. It Tom Savini.
I think it might be.
It's terrible if it is him. That might be some of his worst work ever. Um, we'll talk about Creepshow 2 after this because we might as well. But our first story is called Father's Day, and it's about just the shittiest like nepo babies ever, and I guess their grandmother killed their great grandfather because the great grandfather killed their grandmother's like true love in a quote unquote hunting accident, and then the great grandfather comes back and kills all of them. That's basically it. But in the movie, we get some of the weirdest dancing I think I've ever seen in a movie, and I love it.
Yep.
It has to be seen to believe, to be believed. It's so weird.
It was quite something.
But yeah, we get some good old gore with women's heads ripped off, guys crushed with a tombstone. Wonderful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
the
was
next
surprised. I was surprised Ed Harris was in that one.
when he wasn't even a name.
Yeah, which I want to point out, star-studded cast.
Oh yeah, it's weird that it is, and a lot of them hadn't done a lot of stuff beforehand. So yeah, the next one is the lonesome death of Jordy Verrill, which is the Stephen King story where this hillbilly finds a meteor, he breaks it, and he gets meteor shit. Which they don't say it in this. They don't swear in this comic because of censorship. The swear words have changed.
Oh, shame.
At least in the American version, that is the case. But that would have been how it was like in the 80s. You couldn't swear in comics. It was right before you could start doing that. But this is a throwback to like 50s comics, so you wouldn't have had any swearing. But yeah, he breaks this meteorite in half. Well, he wants to sell the meteorite. He's an idiot. And he touches it, and he starts growing like grass on him, and he just touches everything, and it just starts growing everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He turns into like a weird swamp thing creature, and that's pretty much it. And honestly, it's better in the movie because it's Stephen King
Yes.
as a hillbilly.
Yeah. His acting is just excellent.
It's his best role. It even surpasses Honey, the ATM Called Me an Asshole from Maximum Overdrive. But yeah. Anyway, the next story is my favorite, which is The Crate. And this one was actually one that Stephen King had written beforehand.
Exactly. It was a short story first. I don't remember where it was first published, but I know it was never collected in one of his short story collections.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get like a different book, like an anthology that had it, but it's pretty much the same.
Okay.
Structure-wise, it's slightly differently told, but the same story.
And it is janitor loses a quarter under the stairs, and he finds a crate, and then he convinces the professor to help him get his quarter back. They open the crate, the janitor gets eaten by a creature living in there that's lived in there for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then this other guy who's also faculty, his wife is a horrible bitch, played perfectly by Adrienne Barbeau.
Hmm.
And she's just the fucking worst.
I loved that entire segment when he's just imagining murdering her.
Oh yeah,
When
it's
he shoots, when at this like dinner party, he shoots her in the head in his fantasy, and everybody is starting, to
that was the
clap.
first scene I ever saw of Creepshow. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching? And my mom's like, oh, it's Creepshow. This is a really funny movie. And so I
She's
sat
right.
down and watched the rest of it. And then later I started it from the beginning and I got the first two stories. But anyway, after students eaten, then the guy who has the bitch wife convinces her that he needs her help, like helping this like alleged co-ed that doesn't exist come out from under the stairs, and then she's eaten,
Hmm.
and then they get rid of the crate, or do they? Da da da. Anyway, great one, great story.
Hmm.
Um, Next one, I think, is my least favorite. At least in the film, I prefer the comic over
Oh.
film version, and that is something to die to tide you over. Something to tide you over, and this is Leslie Nielsen buries Ted Danson up to his neck in sand because he was having an affair with Leslie Nielsen's wife. So he also buries his wife up to her neck, and then he drowns them both, and then they come back as like weird sea zombies, and then they bury him. That's basically it.
Yep.
The it just seems mean spirited in the movie. It's like the least fun.
I
Of
kind of disagree, just because Leslie Nielsen's performance.
he's pretty great, and
Hmm.
it's just my least favorite
Mm.
of all of them.
I
Uh,
get it. I really
but
enjoyed
like
it,
I
but
still really like it.
yeah. What I noticed, it's different with the comic and the movie.
Mhm.
In the movie, it's way longer. Like, we get to see him abducting Ted Danson and burying him, whereas in the comic, he's already buried.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the comic is it's just more fast paced.
Hmm.
Um, but the last one is the one where my mother will leave the room for this one because it's so foul. And that is they're creeping up on you. We have an awful old guy who's a germaphobe, and his house is just his apartment is supposed to be like perfect and like you can't get any germs in there, and he keeps getting cockroaches in there. And he's just a horrible human being.
Who has driven like an employee to suicide.
Yeah, and like the wife calls and like he just doesn't care.
Hmm.
He's like outright antagonizing this woman who's lost her husband. Like he ends up being consumed by cockroaches, and that's foul. But honestly, it's such a it's a good way to end it. Like it's a
Hmm.
very memorable way to end this whole thing.
Yeah. And that segment also made me realize pretty much every character in this movie is an asshole, which
This is a
helps.
morality tale.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that they've with the exception of Creepshow 3, which is just a horrible piece of crap. That is what the Creepshow 2 to a certain extent, and Creep in the original Creepshow, they are twisted morality tales like Aesop's fables.
Hmm.
And that's what I like about it. It's one of my favorite kinds of horror. I've talked about this before on here, I think. Or like my two favorite types of horror: people being trapped somewhere, and a morality tale, like a creepy morality tale.
Hmm.
And
You know
Creepshow,
what's you know what story would have perfectly fit like a creep show movie, or maybe the show? The short story Battleground. Remember that one?
yeah, Yeah, with the toys that come to life.
Yeah, and the assassin who gets what he deserves.
Yeah, they probably would have done that if they hadn't done it in Nightmares and Dreamscapes for the pilot episode,
Hmm.
which I've always thought was a weird one. It's a really well made episode, don't get me wrong. But for making Nightmares and Dreamscapes into a series, you pick a story from Night Shift. That's just weird.
Yep.
Um, but well, the film ends with the kid or Joe Hill ordered a voodoo doll. He made it of his dad, like he ordered it from the back of the comic, and he just starts horribly tormenting his dad with the voodoo doll and acting like a complete psychopath
Hmm.
and overacting just like I would expect the son of Stephen King to do.
Hmm.
And I love it. But yeah, Creepshow's become quite the franchise. Um they made one other movie in the 80s, and it's Creepshow 2. We've talked about at least one of the shorts in that, because unlike the first one where they were pretty much all written for Creepshow the movie, these were all taken from Stephen King novellas. Like The Raft is from Skeleton Crew, which is like quite frankly like the only good one, and it's not that good. Um there's the one with the hitchhiker that just won't die. The woman keeps running him over. Have you seen Creepshow 2?
I've seen the review on it by RLM, but
Oh, then you've pretty much seen it. The worst one is the Indian statue that comes to life. And
oh yeah, we get another naked gun actor in it.
mhm. Yeah, as like the nicest old man, and you know he's gonna die.
Hmm.
Um, trying to remember what else is in that. It's got the horrible animated segments with the kid who has the Venus flytraps and feeds his bullies to them.
Mm.
That's what bookends it, and it's terrible and it's badly animated.
The animations in this first one were great.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like this movie is really stylish and just awesome. Like I watched it yesterday for like the first time in its entirety.
Mhm.
Perfect. I would highly recommend it. Like, you know, still holds up.
Like we were saying earlier, Creepshow 2, the creep, he talks and he shouldn't. And he looks different
Hmm.
and he shouldn't. He looks stupid. Everything is just wrong. But then Creepshow 3 happened, and I don't think you've ever seen Creepshow 3.
I've heard of its existence.
Okay, Creepshow 3 is the definition of when you don't get permission to make a sequel and you do it anyway, and then you get sued over it, and only recently has it been readily available. It was made in the 2000s, and it has nothing to do with any of Stephen King's work.
Hmm.
It only has one animated segment, and it looks like something you would have seen on DeviantArt. It's terrible. Or like, no, it looks like early Flash animation.
Hmm.
And it's like a dude killing a dog or something. It was just stupid. Everything is bad in Creepshow 3. And that's all we'll say about it. But the big thing is Creepshow got a TV show, which is actually in its 4th season, which is so nice because season 1 came out and then COVID happened. And it was like, oh gosh, are we ever going to have a second season of this? And it's for Shudder. And I highly recommend it because it's basically, it's not just Stephen King stories. It's like Stephen King has a couple of adaptations, but Joe Hill has some of his stuff has been adapted. Sam Raimi directed an episode.
Oh.
And it's like with the Book of the Dead, it's like an Evil Dead thing, but with no Ash. And like Ted Raimi's in it, and they make him a Deadite. And it's
Nice.
Bob Ross. It's like a Bob Ross character, and he has to fight Deadites. It's in season 2. It's pretty wonderful.
Okay, now I have to watch the show.
Oh yeah, highly recommend. There's some bad episodes, especially in season 3 had some kind of meh ones. Season 1's finale is terrible. It's the only bad episode of the series. It's got like a Loch Ness monster story that just sucks. And each episode's 2 different little shorts.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Oh, and they did during COVID. They did 2 animated ones, and they took. You remember this story? We'll talk about it in Skeleton Crew. The guy who he survives a plane crash and he's stuck on these rocks, and he's got all the heroin, and he keeps
Oh,
having the heroin.
Survivor type, yeah.
Yeah, they adapted that into an animated segment, and it's wonderful. And then they also adapted. I've talked with you about this one before. They did a Joe Hill short where it's like zombies at a circus.
Mm-hmm.
It's done through tweets. It's terrible. And then they did a Christmas special with like werewolves, which is a funny one. Like it's a goofy one. Like a lot of them are camp, but they're all still morality tales pretty much. I've not finished season 3 yet. I need to do that, but it's well worth your time to check out. I've been looking forward to this episode because I knew we were going to have to promote Creepshow, but I think nothing will surpass the original film and this comic. I'm so glad this comic's back in publication.
Yeah,
back in print.
I kind of do, but also don't wish they would make more of these.
They have a Creepshow comic now, but
Really?
Stephen King doesn't write it. Other people write it.
Like an ongoing series, or just?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, there's an ongoing series. I have not read it. I should probably check it out, but who knows? I don't trust modern comics most of the time these days because the message, as it were, and just bad politics. But it's from an indie publisher, so it probably is decent.
I mean, I hope so, because this is something very nice. I mean, I hope it has like this type of art where it feels like, an old-timey horror comic.
I know the covers are similar to the cover of this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, which I want to point out quick with the cover. I like the Stephen King references. Like he has The Shining and Carrie posters on his wall.
But also Dawn of the Dead because George Romero.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly why Creepshow 2 doesn't work, is there's no George Romero directing it.
Mm-hmm. The directing plays a big part why this first one is great.
This is like lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
This might be probably the best King adaptation.
I would say it's definitely the best script he's ever written.
It's his best script. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It will be interesting. It will be interesting to see if they reach these heights again, because George Romero and Stephen King worked together on another movie, another adaptation of his books, The Dark Half, which I've never seen, so I don't know.
I didn't know George Romero directed that. That's not a good movie. I'm just telling you now. It's not a good movie. It's not bad, but it's just not good. You can't even tell it's a George Romero film.
Damn.
Yeah, that was his weird time after Day of the Dead, where he just kind of floundered until, Land of the Dead, which is quite unfortunate. Man. Creepshow's well worth your time to check out. So, anyway, join us next time as we review Different Seasons. It's not an anthology, it's just 4 novellas. So, anyway, have a good one. And if you're sticking with us live, we're still here because we're going to review this right now.
Yep.
So don't worry. Don't worry, everyone. Do you need a break or anything?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So let's talk some different seasons. Hello, everyone, and welcome to King of Our Nightmares. I'm Jeremy,
I'm Noah.
and we're going to talk about my favorite series of novellas, very favorite collection, and that's Different Seasons by Stephen King. I'm very curious because this isn't Noah's favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. First off, the German title, we got another excellent translation. Different seasons, short and to the point. The German publisher thought, like, you know what would sound better? Spring, summer, fall, and death. And that's the full title.
What is that on the cover?
Oh, that's the hammer in Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, it's the rock hammer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess. Well, this one, so this is kind of a big one because two of these stories are very well regarded and have some of the best film adaptations ever done of Stephen King work.
Mm-hmm.
Which first we'll talk about the first one here, which is Rita Hayworth of The Shawshank Redemption, which was then adapted into The Shawshank Redemption, directed by Frank Darabont, which is the best film? That's hard to say. It's not my favorite of the two, but I think it's the better film.
Mm.
It's better than The Apt Pupil, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can believe you.
Rita Hayworth of The Shawshank Redemption is about Andy Dufresne and how he's wrongfully accused of murdering his wife, or he may have murdered her. Who knows? That is a possibility, but it's you don't want to believe that. Like, that's what the story tells you. You don't want to believe that. And how he survived Shawshank prison and escaped. It's told from another inmate's perspective, Red, who in the movie is played by Morgan Freeman, even though in the book he's a ginger, that's why he's called Red. But I wouldn't change that casting for the world, because Morgan Freeman's perfect in that film. Everyone's pretty perfect in the casting of that film. It does some things very different for the better.
Mm-hmm. That was the beauty of Frank Darabont. When he adapted Stephen King stories, he would change stuff, but he would always do it the right way and get something good out of it.
Which, I mean, people get all upset about The Mist, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But The Mist has issues as a story. This, in my opinion, I get you told me that this is just a ripoff of Escape from Alcatraz.
I wouldn't say a straight ripoff, but I just get the feeling King saw that movie and was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm gonna do something like that. Because I remember specific plot elements, like how he gets rid of the sand and stuff, being in a lot of movies back in the day. So I don't know. I always had the feeling like this story is decent, but I could clearly tell what the inspiration was, and that brought it down a little bit.
And this is his first time writing about prison, which will come back in the Green Mile primarily.
Yeah, another excellent one. People thought his prison stories are excellent. And then he wrote Sleeping Beauties.
Yeah. I hate that. And he didn't even write that by himself. He brought his son in to write it.
Oh, probably the other way around.
Oh, yeah?
Dad, can you help me? Get this done.
Is Sleeping Beauties his worst book?
I think it may still be, yes.
Yeah. But I really like Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption because you really like the characters in it. And it's grounded in reality. And that's the thing up until we get to the last story. Even the last story, it seems real until it doesn't.
Mhm.
But I'll try to verbalize that more when we get there. But I always like these because it's almost like a slice of life. They're like slice of life stories. Well, two of them are slice of life stories. One's a twisted slice of life story, and the other one's just a spooky slice of life story.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't romanticize prison though. I want to make that clear because prison is horrific in this.
Yeah.
He actually goes into the history of prisons in Maine up until that point in the book. Because Andy Dufresne's in prison for decades.
Mhm.
It's not like in the movie. The movie kind of glosses over a lot of things just for keeping the pace going. Um, but he's in there a long time, and it's really, really sad
Mhm.
because it's most likely he didn't kill his wife. And when he meets up with a kid that tries to confirm that, the warden switches that kid to a different prison,
Mhm.
and just how messed up the whole prison system was, how corrupt everything was.
Yeah. I'm gonna say Dead Warden's ending in the movie I like better because if
Yeah,
I
I do.
remember right, he gets what he deserves.
Mhm. And so does the main guard, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
because he's like embezzling stuff. Um, yeah, because he gets a fair enough ending in the book,
Hmm.
but yeah,
What I like about this one is it does have almost like a fairy tale feeling, of Red just retelling the story of like this guy coming in. He's this really like unusual inmate,
mhm.
and just how he behaves and how he uh, takes control over the library and stuff and helps the guards out and you know
Yeah,
he creates his own little kingdom, so to speak.
yeah, and he does it
Hmm.
as honestly as you can in prison. Because Red's whole thing is he smuggles things in for people, unless it's weapons or hard drugs. Um, and just Andy with his rock hammer for decades, except for that short period of time he had a roommate
Hmm.
who's always complaining about the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. The less we say about this, most people know what happens in
Yeah.
Shawshank
And I
Redemption.
mean, it's also very short. I think it may be the second shortest story in here.
Yeah, the breathing method's the shortest, I think.
All right.
But yeah, so we'll move on to like the. I think it's the weirdest one, which is the Apt Pupil, which was adapted into a film in the '90s, uh, directed by everyone's favorite director Brian Singer,
Hmm.
starring Ian McKellen as a Nazi. Um,
Is there
so
anyone else of note in there?
I can't remember who else is in there. I've only seen it once.
Okay.
It's awful. It's an awful movie.
Hmm.
But the book, the novella, it's about this kid who's obsessed with war crimes and Nazis because he found a bunch of magazines about war crimes in his friend's basement. He discovers that one of his neighbors is a Nazi, and he blackmails him into telling him stories about it. That's how it begins. He
Hmm.
blackmails him into telling him about the oh gosh, what camp was he commander of? I can't remember. It's not Auschwitz.
No, it wasn't Dachau, right?
No, no, it wasn't.
Yeah,
But
but the point is one of the camps. He was in charge there, and he was like a infamous character.
yeah, and he's been living illegally in America for decades,
Hmm.
and he they end up forming this weird relationship between the two of them. That's the
Yeah.
most toxic relationship I've ever seen in my life. These people are both psychopaths,
Hmm.
and
And that's what makes it so interesting and fascinating.
yeah, because the kid just starts doing bad in school because he's just obsessed,
Hmm.
and he's an apt pupil, and his parents are idiots. That's like the funniest thing about it is his parents are just they're just dumb people.
Hmm.
They shouldn't be dumb, but they are, and they don't understand their kid, and they cave to their kid's wishes, and he he's just he's a little asshole, and they both both main characters become serial killers.
Yep.
It's just was so weird. This is probably the most horrific of the four stories. A lot of
Yes.
a lot of animal murder.
And homeless guy murder.
Oh well, they call them winos in this, which is not a politically correct term.
Hmm.
But the hatred of the homeless in this is kind of shocking. They just keep murdering them, and then the way that everything unravels is so bizarrely coincidental. I'm not going to spoil it. You all
Hmm.
need to read this because it's just so it's shocking. It's kind of funny,
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
but the very end is really shocking.
Hmm.
And
It has one of those really really dark endings.
yeah, like a Bachman ending.
Yeah.
And then we move on to the body, which is
Already.
what's that?
Already.
Yeah.
Nothing more to say here. Okay.
I don't want to say any more about App Pupil
Okay. Okay.
because App Pupil needs it's the longest story and it needs to be witnessed to believe.
All
Like
right.
to believe it.
One thing I do want to mention quick with the characters, what I found interesting at the beginning, the former Nazi guy is almost sympathetic, almost,
Almost.
because you may get the feeling maybe he's like just trying to lay down, maybe he has changed, maybe
Mhm.
he wasn't that bad of a guy because we don't know at the beginning, and then it just gets crazier and crazier.
Then he puts a cat in an oven.
Yeah, and same for like the kid even, where at the beginning he's kind of an ass, but there was room for maybe
He the
he's not
kid
that bad.
that's the thing. The kid becomes sadistic first.
Yeah,
Like when he gets him the SS in uniform and makes him march around the house.
that was the one of the funniest things ever. Can we spoil this little element? He buys him an SS uniform, like a costume, somehow.
Yeah, you can buy those in America. I've seen them. I've seen them. They're yeah. You can buy those. It's for like World War II reenactments.
Hmm.
Like you buy them from specialty places online because that stuff's considered very offensive, especially
Hmm.
where you live. They're
Yes,
illegal.
because where I lived, it's literally illegal.
Here that they're trying to make it illegal. It's just in bad taste here.
Hmm.
But yeah, and it's just like a really terrible costume that becomes like a weird safety blanket for him.
Yeah, he needs to wear it for sleep.
It's so weird.
Oh, what? So I don't forget it because Obviously, this deals with a German character, so we get some German words in here.
Oh yeah.
That's why I read it in English, because I was curious if King fucks up. And he does 2 or 3 times, but it's little things that are forgivable. Uh, except one thing. Uh, oh yeah, okay, I remember. When the characters are drinking, and the German guy, he's giving like a, what do you call it? A toast, or not really? What do you call that? You just say something to another guy before you drink the alcohol.
That's basically a toast.
Okay, he says "Grüß Gott," which is a greeting. It literally means like you say hello to God. It doesn't make sense literally, but it's just like hello, basically. Unless I'm completely mistaken, that is not a toast in German. It
Uh,
sounded incredibly weird reading it, so I'm gonna assume that's a fuck up.
oh my god. I was trying to. I just remembered it's a weird. So the next story is a more of a coming of age story, but this one kind of is too. The sex stuff. I think we have
Oh
to
yeah,
take it up.
emphasis on coming of age.
Oh my god. The the weird eroticism of concentration camps to this kid, and it's as bad as it sounds. It's disgusting.
Yep.
Uh,
But it's also twistedly humorous when he talks about that girlfriend he currently has with his dad,
yeah,
and what his dad thinks is happening, and then what the kid actually what's really going on.
he can't stand her.
Yeah, and she's like a, what would you call it, nymphomaniac, sex obsessed.
Oh, she's a skank. Yeah,
Hmm.
she's she's just really into sex, and he he has trouble with it because he has twisted fantasies that he gets off on, and he clearly can't do it for her, but because he has trouble climaxing. She thinks it's like the best sex ever. Oh my god, I can't believe we're talking about this. Uh, it's
Hmm.
so weird. But like ultimately the two of them, these two our two main characters just keep blackmailing one another.
Hmm.
And it's all lies.
Yeah.
But they don't trust one another so much that they have to believe the lies.
Hmm. Honestly, this is my favorite in this collection, definitely.
Yeah. I think it's the best written of the four of them.
Hmm.
I don't know which one's my favorite. It's not the breathing method, I can tell you that. We'll get there. Anyway,
I know the next one, the body, isn't my favorite.
no, I knew you didn't like this. So the body, or most people know it by its film title, "Stand by Me," which is a lot better than the novella.
Hmm.
Have you seen "Stand by Me"?
I haven't, but I absolutely believe you that it's better.
Well, it gets rid of the really one of the terrible stories.
Yeah.
So the body is about a group of friends in the 50s. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about there were connecting things with, so these stories kind of connect with one another.
Hmm.
Specifically, App Pupil references Shawshank Redemption and Andy Dufresne going to prison.
And not vaguely. Like the Nazi guy, Dusander, literally says, oh yeah, um, my former lawyer guy went to jail. And then he literally says, I remember his name just because it sounds similar to mine. He was like Dufresne, Andy Dufresne. He murdered his wife.
His accountant.
Accountant, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's lawyer. His accountant. Um, this one, The Bodies takes place in Castle Rock.
One of the early Castle Rock stories, introducing a character that we will meet again.
Yeah, it's Bannerman's ancestor.
No, someone else. Ace Merrill.
What's he in?
Oh, he has a big role in Needful Things.
Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. That might be why they upped his character. No, Needful Things hadn't been written yet when they made Stand By Me. But he has a bigger role in the movie because he's played by Kiefer Sutherland. And one of Kiefer Sutherland's most asshole-ish of roles. Yeah, let's talk about The Body here.
All right, because to me, it's not that it's bad, but it's frustrating to me, and the worst of the collection for me, because it's such a mixed bag, because the stuff with the kids in here and the 50s setting and era, it feels good. It's fun.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
one of
do
his
enjoy it.
better because this is Stephen King's role in early King's bread and butter is writing kids because his kids were young still.
And this is set in the 50s, King's own childhood times. So,
which I've heard this is loosely based off of something that happened to him.
yes, he saw one of his friends get run over by a train as a little kid.
Yes, because he talks about it in Dance Macabre. But he doesn't actually remember it happening.
Yeah.
Like, he blocked it from his mind. But these four friends, they all hang out in their treehouse, and one of them overheard his older brother saying that they found a dead body, but because his older brother boosted a car, they didn't report it, because why would they be out there? And this kid's been missing for a while. So the four friends go out to they go on a little adventure to find the body, which is very morbid, but it's also what like 11, 12-year-olds would do, especially back then, because parents were a lot laxer then. Things were safer in like a small town like that, so they go on an odyssey of sorts. Our main character, he's telling it from he's an adult. He's just telling the story.
And he's an author. He's very clearly the Stephen King self-insert here.
Yes. But unfortunately, we get two Stephen King short stories that are inserted in here that the kid wrote when he was a kid and then later rewrote as a young adult and published, and they were just bad. They're bad Stephen King shorts. The worst one is the Chico story, in my
Stud City.
Studs. It's so bad they don't put it in the movie at all.
I understand why. We have to point this out. So I like this plot with the little adventure, this group of friends, the 50s setting, and all these little things that happen on their journey, to find the body. That's all fun and good, and I like it. But then we get these two short stories that just completely break the flow of the narrative.
Yeah.
And I get what he's trying to do with Stud City, where it's clearly the main character, what we've seen of him so far, he's working his own childhood and trauma into a short story he's writing.
Yeah.
And that's also supposed to add to his character. I get that, but you can leave that out.
Because our main character, his brother died in a car accident. And his parents, that was their favorite. And so he's just the invisible boy in their house. Another one of the kids, his dad held his ear over a stove and burned his face. The kid whose brother like none of these kids have good home lives. Like there's another one, his dad just beats him, and like his
Mhm.
parents just neglect him and all of his siblings. The one that overheard his brother though, he buried all of his pennies under the his house and made a treasure map, and his mom threw the treasure map away. So he's always trying to find these pennies. Which is
That's a nice little story.
and that character is played by Jerry O'Connell,
Hmm.
but Jerry O'Connell's a little fat kid. It doesn't look like Jerry O'Connell. So like Will Wheaton's the main character in the movie. Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, is
Mhm.
the the friend that his like all of his family, like they're all troublemakers and stuff, and he's persecuted because of that.
Mhm.
And then Corey Feldman is the crazy one who has the burnt ear, can't see anything, and has the terrible laugh.
Mhm.
But anyway, they go on an adventure. We get everything from like the scary neighborhood dog is not actually scary.
Yeah.
Chopper sick balls that never happened. The junkyard dog isn't actually scary.
Mhm.
Like
I like the part when our main character goes to like this little store and he's buying some food and drinks and stuff, and the guy at the counter is trying to fuck him over.
yeah, and he calls him out on it, and because he's a kid, he's just treated poorly.
Mhm.
Um, I really like that the our narrator references the um Cujo. Cujo gets directly
Yeah.
referenced in this because Chopper was the scariest dog until the Cujo thing happened.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Small Time's been commenting throughout, and yes, there is the leeches scene that makes it in the movie, but I'm not gonna get there yet. I want to talk about the lard ass story,
Uh, mhm.
which
Is
worked
that one in the
in the movie.
movie?
Yes,
Oh my god.
and Will Wheaton's narrates the whole thing, and it actually works in the movie.
Hmm.
It
That's good.
doesn't work in the book because it's ungodly long in the book. They cut a lot of it out.
Hmm.
Um, and everyone throws up on each other. The pie.
Nice.
Barfarama is what they use in the movie. They don't use that in the book, and I was disappointed.
Oh
Uh,
man. And
but
again, that's another short story of King's that he tries to work into this story.
mhm,
I I guess it also kind of makes sense because it's like just a fun story. The kids, our main character tells the other kids because again,
mhm.
he's like the one who likes to come up with stories.
Yeah, because he's the smartest of the four of them,
Mhm.
and he convinces the the other kid, one of the other kids, that like he's smart too, and he should start doing the not taking shop courses and stuff. Like he should become an academic student, which is probably the best part of the book, if I'm being completely honest.
Mhm.
Although I do love the train scene, like some of the action stuff, like when they're on the bridge, the train's coming at them, or
Mhm.
the leeches scene's pretty horrific. Not as horrific as anything in the app Pupil, but still scary. You want to leech on your junk. Nasty.
Mhm.
Um, the big differences though between the novella and the movie are there are the movie ends on like a more positive note, so no, because in the book they screw the teenagers over because they packed a gun, which
Mhm.
LeChance, our main character, actually pulls the gun on Ace as opposed to the River Phoenix character doing it like he does in the book.
Mhm.
um which I think works better in the movie. But because of this, their Ace and the bullies beat the unholy hell out of all the kids. like badly, like put them in the hospital. And that does not happen in the movie. Instead, we get like an early bullying scene where they try to burn River Phoenix's eye with a cigarette.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. But yeah, that's The Body. Pretty good. Better movie than it is a novella. But now
Yeah.
we get to the required horror story.
Literally required, as we know from the afterword here.
Yeah, so all these previous three novellas were written between publishing novels. So they were just written at different times in his life. But this one, in order to publish this, his publisher said there has to be a scary story. So
Yeah.
he came up with this.
And I like how in the afterword King was like, we call it different seasons. I want to do something, different, not necessarily horror. And his publisher was just begging him. So King relented and wrote this. But he also points out he already pitched the next book. What about a haunted ghost car?
Yeah. Yeah, we set up Christine and in the afterword of this. But yeah, let's talk about the breathing method.
Mhm.
Feels like a ghost story by Peter Straub, but not as good. It was like he read, I don't know when a ghost story came out, but that's a bunch of old men that are part of the Chowder Society. They tell creepy tales, and it's a similar story to that, where it is a group of men. Some of them work together, or the main character who hears this story. It's weirdly, it's the weirdest structure of all four of these.
Mhm.
So our
1979, by the way, Ghost Story was published.
okay, so
So before this, yeah.
yeah, it's very clear he read a ghost story and
Mhm.
then ripped it off. Ripped off its setup, because it's a different story from that. It's not a spook. It's bizarre. I wouldn't say this is creepy. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
little creepy. It's just weird. And up until this point, these all have been kind of grounded in reality. And this one, for the most part, it stays grounded in reality. It's about, so how do I even explain this? So our main character, his boss invites him to a gentleman's club. And after going to the said gentleman's club for a while, another member of the gentleman's club, who was a doctor in, oh god, when does the actual story, like, is it the 30s?
Possibly. I mean, I can
Because
try to
because this
check.
doctor's an old man when he's telling the story.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't remember when that is
Okay, so
set.
it's some time ago. It's before Lamaze. If for those of you who don't know, that's the breathing women do when they're giving birth. It's called Lamaze breathing. They didn't used to do that in the West. Uh, so birthing children was just even more of a nightmare than it already is. And so, like, this doctor, he was at the time when he had this patient, he was a young man, and he called it the breathing method. It's Lamaze breathing, basically. Um, and he taught this single mother, who the father ran off and left her high and dry. And he sort of befriends her. She doesn't have anyone. And it's just, they become pretty close during her pregnancy. And then when it comes time for the baby to be born, she's in a taxi. The taxi crashes. She's thrown from said taxi, gets decapitated, and still gives birth to the baby.
Yeah.
And the reason I even went into that, because yes, that is a big spoiler for this, is because this is referenced later on in other King work.
Oh, specifically one. It's kind of like a sequel. The short story, "The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands," and it's in Skeleton Crew.
It's so bizarre. I was just when it came time to reading the every time I've read this a few times, and every time I'm just speechless by the end of it
Hmm.
because I don't get what the point was.
The point was the publisher demanded a horror story.
Yeah, but you get what I mean. Like there was
Yeah.
overall there were kind of messages in each one of them. These and this is just it's a it's a memorable way to end your book. I'll say that.
Mhm. Is this the one? The club in this one does already show like supernatural signs, right? Because I remember that in one of the
Yes.
stories.
Yes. It
Okay, because
does.
it's either in this one or in the short story, but the butler is apparently, there are hints that he's like hundreds of years old.
Yeah, and that the building that they go to is like endless,
Hmm.
and that the butler hints that people have been lost in there. And it's like a weird offhand comment that doesn't lead anywhere.
Hmm.
I don't I don't know. This is Drug King we're talking about. So yeah. Anyway, that's different seasons basically.
Yeah.
It's a good solid 4 novellas.
Hmm.
Probably his best set of novellas. It's his
It may be.
I'm trying to think
I'm
of other books where he has novellas.
So we had different seasons. We
Mhm.
had Four Past Midnight. We had Full Dark, No Stars, and If It Bleeds. Out of those, I would say Full Dark, No Stars comes close. Um, because that one has 1922, uh, Fair Extension, and A Good Marriage, which I think are pretty solid. And then one story, Big Driver, which I didn't like. Uh, Four Past Midnight, the novella collection after this one, has the Langoliers.
Oh, that's right. That's where it is.
Yeah.
Langolier.
Which is one of my favorites, that story.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah. It also has Secret Garden, Secret Window, which is like a mix between The Dark Half and Misery, which I enjoy. Then
Which
the
they made
next.
into a movie.
Oh, yeah, with Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
I remember that being solid enough.
it's a weird movie.
Hmm? And then the other two stories in there I found weaker, which is The Library Policeman and The Sun Dog. And then If It Bleeds, that's Modern King. It has one of his best stories, one of the best things he's written in like 10 to 20 years, which is The Life of Chuck. But then the rest is kind of like eh. And then the Holly Gibney story is just shit.
Oh yeah, that's the sequel to Outsider.
Yeah, where King was like, hey, I'm just gonna do The Outsider again, but in a novella and focus more on Holly.
Who's the worst part of The Outsider?
Yep. And when I say he's doing The Outsider again, I mean the bad guy is literally just another outsider, the exact same type of thing, but he's a reporter and he doesn't do anything clever with it and he doesn't explain it. Holly thinks like, oh, maybe he's like a cousin type of creature.
Hmm.
It's so lazy.
Yeah. I just remember The Outsider. I always say this. It's a pretty solid first half of a King book. I remember being really excited. Really, the first chapter's so horrific
Hmm.
for a modern King, and then like it's really compelling. And then I hadn't read the Bill Hodges trilogy before this, so this was my first experience of Holly Gibney, and I'm like, who is this? And, like, without reading the Bill Hodges trilogy, I knew this character was from a different book because she
Mhm.
acts nothing like anyone else does. She's just a weirdo.
Yeah. And I like that you specifically say the first half was good because literally the second half is when Holly shows up and she dominates it.
Yeah, and then like the creature just starts doing dumb things, and
Mhm.
he starts ripping off it.
Yeah. He's okay, not just it, but the ending specifically. It's like a mix of the ending of Mr. Mercedes and Desperation.
Yeah,
With
it's very much attack. Yeah, the I know this has suddenly become talking about the outsider, but we won't be talking about this for a long time. But yeah, yeah, it's very much like tax demise
Mhm.
in desperation. It's freaking weird. And then it's got like a half-assed possible Dark Tower reference.
What was it?
It was like that there were other worlds,
Hmm.
and I'm just like, we're doing this now, and then they do nothing with it,
Yeah.
and it's like, because like at this point, like I had read all of Dark Tower, and Wind Through the Keyhole was still kind of new. It'd been out a few years. So I was like, okay, are we gonna set up something? No, because I don't think the Gwendy books even reference Outsider.
No, obviously not. It's just a little reference. But the Gwendy books, Gwendy's final task is the closest we get to another Dark Tower book, it seems. Not even Fairy Tale has that much Dark Tower. There's like two references, and they are meta instead of like direct. So
Yeah, I, we'll get to it in like the late '90s or the early 2000s, where everything connected to the Dark Tower. It's
mhm.
almost nauseating how much stuff.
Yeah.
Not all of it, I think, is good.
Mhm. But
Like
that
Black.
will be fun. It's gonna be like 5 to 10 books in a row, where on every stream we just have to be like, okay, pause. We have to explain the Dark Tower.
Yeah, because we'll be reading all this stuff, and we'll only have gone through Wizard and Glass. It's
Mhm.
just gonna be really weird. Um, do the Gwendy books reference the Dark Tower as much as Oh God, what is the one with the Crimson King? Insomnia.
Insomnia. Well, Insomnia mostly also works as a standalone. Um, I would say Gwendy's final task, like it's specifically only the third one, that is very much that is more so than Insomnia. Like the literally the entire plot is like Gwendy has to get rid of the button box, so the Ted Corporation from the Dark Tower sends her to space so she can get rid of it. And the mission was given to her by good guy Randall Flagg.
God, stop! I hate that.
I wonder if he's ever gonna touch that again or explain what the hell was going on there, but I doubt it.
I hope he does, and I hope that Gwendy is like, because she did that, it's actually a bad thing, and she's like was betrayed, and then she's, I don't know, has like a heroic sacrifice or something.
You know, I can already guess what his answer would be. Another level of the tower where Walter is a good guy, like he has a change of heart.
Yeah. Well, because he even counts the Dark Tower movie.
As the sequel, yeah. When
Ah,
it was coming out, though, as we know, King changes his tune very quickly after movies released.
well, he had to. After the Kubrick thing was just a nightmare. We that happened around the time these books came out that we've recorded, where he publicly denounced Stanley Kubrick, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, for good reason. But that's a good reason that only you and I seem to like agree on.
Mhm.
But yeah, different seasons, setting up things.
Yeah. The first taste of King doing something different.
Yeah. Is it the best? Him doing something different?
I don't know. It would depend what other stories we're counting in that category. Because
Yeah.
he has written good stuff that is, different feeling than just, classic horror stuff.
Well, I mean, like Colorado Kid, which that's not super.
I If we're going hard case crime, I would say Joyland. I vastly prefer.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard Case Crime is his weird thing. That is a weird relationship he has with that publication company.
Hmm. I wish he would release more books there because I think the ones he did were pretty excellent.
You liked Later?
I did like Later. That's one of his better books in the last years.
I wish Later got a hardcover release that wasn't like super limited.
Yep, like Joyland. I have that hardcover. It's very nice.
Oh, the illustrated one?
Yeah, with like the illustrations inside and like the different front cover, and the back is like a map of the Joyland Park.
Yeah. Yeah. That's easier to get than the Later paperback. The Later paperback's like a minimum of $300 secondhand.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's weird. It was part of like they did a bunch of random King books and they gave them slip covers and
Mhm.
they're all really expensive and there weren't that many of them made. But Later's the one that's most sought out because they didn't give it a hardcover release in America. I don't
Hmm.
know, it's just weird. It's one of the few King books I have only in paperback,
Hmm.
along with Cycle of the Werewolf and the first print of Dark Tower before the revised editions to Gunslinger.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, anyway, it's probably about all we have for King of Our Nightmares.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about two very different but very good King things.
But they're set up similarly. They're anthologies in a way.
Yeah, and they both have great movies.
They do, except for don't watch The App Pupil.
Hmm.
Don't give Brian Singer any money. Dude's a scumbag.
Hmm.
Fuck that guy.
On that note, I'm surprised they never did something with the breathing method. I've heard like 2016 they tried to do a TV show, but that fell through.
Of the breathing method?
Yeah, I've read like a little synopsis. Apparently, they wanted to make it like a romantic drama between the woman and her doctor.
Oh, I guess. Ugh.
Yeah, that's.
I'm starting to get flashbacks to the Under the Dome series.
I was thinking more like Haven, where they adapted Colorado Kid, but it's just like a different story, for multiple seasons.
Ugh. Stephen King stuff shouldn't be TV shows unless it's Creepshow. And that's primarily because they mostly don't do Stephen King stuff on Creepshow. They do other horror authors' stuff.
Yeah, Small Time Republic, great comment. As long as Bryan Singer doesn't direct a Stand By Me remake, we are good.
Well, they should never remake Stand By Me.
Yeah.
But anyway. All right. Have a good one, everyone.